Epstein's usual suspects get House subpoenas, including the Clintons. Blaze News, The Mandate, starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined remotely by editor-in-chief Matthew Peterson, who's still in Southern California. I'm sure that it's beautiful there, Matt.
I don't even want to talk about it. It just makes me mad. I actually made it to the beach today for the first time and did a little beach walking. It was good. But the rest of it is all work and a lot of good times. The Lincoln Fellowship that Claremont's putting on. Incredible people in and outside the administration doing great work, coming together to learn, plan, and conspire.
All right, well, I don't think that they came here to listen to your beach walks, but they do. The audience does love when we have some Epstein news on the show, and we definitely have that. So it's no longer just a scandal. It's actually turning into a full-blown reckoning. We have Rep. James Comer. He's leading the House Oversight Committee. He's dropped subpoenas on some of the most protected elites into the investigation into the ties to Jeffrey Epstein. This is what we've been waiting for, Matt, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the names that have been subpoenaed. We have Attorney General Bill Barr, Robert Mueller, Eric Holder, James Comey, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. Some of these names I am actually pretty shocked to see, Matt. When you look at this, like they didn't actually hold back. Now, our favorite, right? We talk about Susan Rice all the time on the show. She's not on there, but there are a lot of really, really big, high-level names on this list.
Yes, you love to see it, right? You love to see it. And it's the first sign of some level of serious prosecution, dare we say, of this, at the very least, a prosecution in public. So seeing these names is great. And, kudos to Comer. Like, this is for real. Getting these big names to actually show up and have to account for themselves is the first step, I mean, we need what they used to call truth and reconciliation, right? After the war, you have to go through and look at everyone's crimes after the fact. And the first step is truth. You got to put people, to the test and ask them the tough questions. So good for them. About time. It's a good first step.
All right, so we have Epstein files and we have Russiagate, and that's basically all of the news headlines for the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? This is what we have. And we have DNI Tulsi Gabbard. She's continuing to do the document dumps. And we've been asking, where is all of the action? Where is AG Pam Bondi? Well, yesterday she directed her staff to open a grand jury investigation. So let's go ahead and look at President Trump from earlier this morning on CNBC saying what he thinks about the DOJ's movement on this matter.
Now tapping a grand jury to look into the intelligence community's assessment of what was happening with Russia. Is that you have nothing to do with directing the Justice Department?
Nope, I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this, they deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it. But what they did in the election, what they did in even the last election, but it was too big to rig, but what they did in the 2020 election is grotesque.
All right, so we have subpoenas that we just talked about. This is going through and opening a grand jury investigation. Matt, are we actually going to finally see some accountability, or is this going to be Lucy, are we going to pull the football one more time? What is happening? Because I don't know if I can be let down time and time and time again.
I know. And people on the right, Republicans, have been let down a lot, and they've run for that football. In this case, we have to cautious optimism is warranted. It's a good thing that Bondi is moving in this direction. I will say, we do know there's lots of people in the administration who are dead serious about this, and it needs to be pushed. So, in this case, what will happen at the end? We don't know, but what we do know is, again, this is a step in the right direction. This needs to happen. And, kudos to Bondi for going ahead and moving forward with it. And we'll see how it goes. We'll be monitoring it very closely here at Blaze Media. And so some cautious optimism is warranted. And also, I think people should zoom out and remember, when you start to blackpill or get depressed about this and think, nothing will ever happen, This is the golden age. Like, we've seen things that we did not think could happen almost every day now. So this is, again, a good step in the right direction.
And there's more news coming out. We see Mike Morrell. He's a former acting director of the CIA. He's back in the news. If you remember his name, you'll probably remember him for pushing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal back in 2020. But the new information that we have from him is that he played a key role in helping Hillary Clinton back in 2016 smear Donald Trump by tying him to Putin. So if you're wondering, how did that actually go down? Well, hey, he was just the former acting director of the CIA, Matt, just a low-level intelligence agency there.
No, Mike Morrell bears a lot of the blame. He's one of the key players. And this is someone who was so shameless, as to write publicly that Trump had unwittingly become a stooge of Putin. I mean, it's not conspiracy theory stuff. This is like cartoonish lies, boldly, shamelessly proclaimed in public by the very people who are supposed to provide intelligence, truth to the American people and the commander-in-chief. So Mike Morrell belongs in the Hall of Shame, along with Comey and Brennan and all the rest.
All right, Brennan and Clapper, we've been talking about them because people have been wondering, right? Are they just going to bring up things and names of people where the statute of limitations has already expired? Well, unfortunately, if that was their plan, Brennan and Clapper aren't following your lead, because when they wrote that op-ed in the New York Times, we talked about it last week on the show, Matt, right? They were going through and they were saying, oh, here are all the different lies about the dossier and going through all the best, the greatest hits of that. Well, when they did that, Matt, they actually restarted the clock. So CIA Director John Ratcliffe said that the statute of limitations doesn't start to run until the last act in the furtherance of that conspiracy. They're continuing the conspiracy right now with the New York Times op-ed.
Yeah, I think it's very significant that the director of CIA said that. The fact that you have Ratcliffe saying, oh no, what statute of limitations? This conspiracy is ongoing is, first off, true, right? But second, it presents a very interesting prospect, which is that there is no running out when these people have never repented and continue to actively engage in conspiracy against now the president of the United States, again, Donald J. Trump. So I think that was the significant statement. I think that you see the media, right, is still part of this conspiracy. None of them have done any retrospection. They went 110% for Russiagate. They cannot apologize for it. And so we need to die on that hill. They will die on that hill. And they're going to stay there, and they will commit suicide rather than repent. And so that presents the right, both in the media and legally, with a interesting opportunity to actually, dare I say it, implement some justice here in the United States of America.
This is like the lightning round of Russiagate right now. Mark Elias has entered into the picture, which I feel like he's one of my favorite characters, right? Like, whenever you hear this, and he's actually replying to the Glenn Beck interview with DNI Tulsi Gabbard. So I think this is just perfect. And he was going through and saying, I'm not the deep state. If anybody's the deep state, it's Tulsi Gabbard, which is like, what are you even talking about? Because she's the one that's actively going out there fighting against the deep state. But he wrote that he's not panicking. Mark Elias says, I'm not panicking. I'm outraged. I'm going to read a little bit of this to you because it's so, so good. He said, I'm outraged that our government is run by people with no regard for the Constitution of rule of law. The administration, they're only loyal to Donald Trump. He goes and talks about foreign gulags. The Republican Party is filled with cowards. Universities would rather take a knee than stand tall and fight. This is so good. It's so riddled with like all of just the pure fallacies that the leftists love coming out and saying. I think this is why every time Mark Elias says something, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Please tell me more.
Mark Elias has been living as a king in a world that is now falling apart around him. Mark Elias has been running rampant, right, as a pawn of billionaires on the left as a pawn of powerful people, powerful politicians in the Democratic Party. He is the king of dirty tricks. He is the king of, the scummiest stuff you could imagine. And now Mark Elias has to face the music. And it's starting to dawn on him that his entire world, all the institutions that he would support, all the corruption that he was engaged in, it's all falling apart around him because MAGA is winning. And so, the more that I'm not panicking, I'm just complaining that everything's falling apart. The more he does that, the better. It's a very good sign because, yes, Elias, you are going down, it will be over. And once those power structures start to erode, what happens is you can actually start to prosecute people for their crimes. It's sad, but it's true in this country. Once you lose power and people start to realize it, no one's really friends with people like this guy. These are not nice people. Then all of a sudden they start to turn on themselves. That's the next step here, right? The next step is actually for some of these people under pressure to start turning on their former overlords, their former masters, big politician names that and that could be very interesting. So the more pressure that's put on this guy, the better. This is someone who, has really done a lot of damage to this country. And the more he complains, the better I feel. The better I feel.
I'm sure the Elias Law Group will do just fine. But for our audience that's going out there, we haven't had great news headlines for the last few weeks, right? We're getting better now that DNI Gabbard is going out there and doing all these document dumps, and it feels like she's just pulling everybody else in the administration with her, like, hey, Pam Bondi, we're going to go do this. We're going to go through and try and get some justice for the American people. But I want people to remember that today happened, and these things feel like small victories, right? When you get Brennan and Comey that are like, oh, we just need to go write an op-ed in the New York Times, and the director of the CIA is like, ooh, great, we get to start the clock over. Mark Elias is just out there complaining about the deep state. Today is a day to take note of, Matt.
Yes, because these aren't small wins in the larger picture. I mean, the larger picture is none of this, right, was supposed to happen. Not a single one of these wins was supposed to happen. Donald Trump was never supposed to walk back into the White House, and he did. And so now you see these small wins accumulating. And when small wins accumulate every day, that's when you achieve great victories. And that's what you see here. There's a lot of good people in that administration who understand everything the audience does. They're on their side. They're fighting the bad guys on all sides. And you see, slowly but surely, that power structure, all those institutions, from the Ivy League universities to Mark Elias's firm, to all these politicians who they had it made in the shade. Now they're starting to run for cover. Now they're starting to get defensive. Now they're starting to feel fear. And this is what winning looks like. Small wins, drip, 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 until you break through some of these obstacles and start to get the victories that everyone wants. And that's happening on many fronts. So I keep on counseling people, who are engaged in the midst of this to just zoom out for a minute, right? Take a break and realize this is what winning looks like.
Well, don't go anywhere, because what winning looks like, Mitch McConnell, he's actually not going to be in the Senate anymore. We're going to talk to somebody who wants to fill his seat next in the Senate Kentucky race right after this. Well, is the disconnect between Trump and the Fed setting us up for another economic mess? Can the Fed actually act in time, or are we going to head straight for a slowdown? And most importantly, what does this mean for all of your savings? Consider diversifying with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, all the global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. So if you have an IRA or 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or you can just buy some gold to keep in your safe. First of all, what you need to do is get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text my name, Jill, to the number 989898. That's Jill to 989898, and consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. That way, the Fed can't stay ahead of the curve for the country. At least you can stay ahead of it for yourself. After 40 years in the Senate, Mitch McConnell is finally stepping down. And one man is calling on everyone in Kentucky to put McConnellism in the past. Let's chart a new path forward.
It's garbage day in Kentucky. And thanks to Mitch McConnell, things have gotten dirty. The Bluegrass State is sick and tired of cleaning up career politicians' messes. I'm Nate Morris, a Trump America First conservative, and I'm here to take out the trash.
Don Jr. called that one of the best campaign ads that he's seen in years. Joining us now is Kentucky Senate candidate Nate Morris. So Nate, thanks so much for joining us. So we look at this state, right? Every time we look at Kentucky, we think of Mitch McConnell, and we are very excited to be moving on. So why is your campaign decidedly so anti-Mitch McConnell and pro-Donald Trump?
Well, thank you for having me. And we've seen Mitch McConnell not represent Kentucky. And I think that's one of the biggest differentiations between myself and my opponents. I've never been in politics before. I'm an outsider. I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur. And I felt like that if I didn't get into this race, the two guys that were running, they're nothing but puppets for Mitch McConnell. This is Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron. And I said, we can't let that happen. We've got to have a clean break for Mitch because, as you all know, Mitch McConnell has pushed amnesty on us. He has voted with Joe Biden on gun control. He's continued to get us in these endless wars like the Ukraine. He's voted for things like NAFTA and pushed NAFTA on us. And people like my family, I come from a working class background. I was raised by a single mother. 19 of my family members worked in an auto plant right here in Kentucky. And what I'm so excited about the MAGA movement is that we're focusing on the American worker. We're focusing on the Kentuckians that are fighting every day to live the American dream, like my family did. And I don't think Mitch McConnell's represented that. And I think he's done everything he can to sabotage President Trump. And I think this election is going to be really clear: a vote for Mitch McConnell or a vote for Donald Trump. And my opponents, they've called Mitch McConnell their mentor, and they owe everything to Mitch. And I'm in this race to shake it up, to bring an outside perspective, a non-career politician perspective. And I think that's what America needs. Career politicians have run this country off a cliff, and we all know that. And I think it's time for a change.
Oh, Nate, you're speaking my love language here. This is really interesting stuff. For so long, there's been in the Republican Party, a raft of candidates who are all, sort of the same. And, you announced on Don Jr.'s podcast, and, when Bernie Moreno and Jim Banks both give a thumbs up, I pay attention. But when you look at this race, I mean, the obstacle would be, in former times at least, this is the ultimate insider. This is the ultimate incumbent candidate. This is the guy who held the keys to hundreds of millions of dollars, and divvied it out according to what he needed and wanted to do. He's sort of on his own team. I mean, famously, anyone paying attention knows Donald Trump regrets endorsing him once upon a time deeply. So the obstacle is real, though, right? One would think, because he was sitting on a mountain of cash. Yeah, he's leaving, and now, as you say, his underlings are going to run. So how do you defeat that?
Well, I think it's really clear. We've got a distinct message that's radically different than Mitch McConnell and his cronies and his puppets. And I think the people of Kentucky are ready for a change. They've got Mitch fatigue. You may remember President Trump famously said, we have to rid Kentucky of the stench of Mitch. And there is a very distinct stench that's been here a very, very long time, because he has been the ultimate political boss. I gave a quote to the Associated Press. You may have seen a really terrific article they did over the weekend about Fancy Farm. And I said, Mitch McConnell is one of the nastiest politicians in the history of our country. And we know that's true. Anyone in Washington, ask them, and they'll tell you the same thing. Mitch McConnell plays for keeps. And I've taken a lot of incoming because of that. Both of my opponents are firing at me every day. They've learned from the best about how to lie and smear. And this is going to be a very hard-fought campaign. We're fighting for every inch. But I believe that we can be a giant killer here. And we're coming from the outside. We don't owe anybody anything. We don't owe the swamp anything. And we can bring a new perspective that's focused on the America First agenda and also talking about things like term limits. Mitch McConnell attacked me over the weekend and he said, don't you want to be like me, the longest serving leader in history? Absolutely not. I don't want to be the longest serving anything in the U.S. Senate. And that's the problem, Mitch. And that's the reason why so many Kentuckians are angry with you and so many Americans are angry with you. This shouldn't be a career. Our founding fathers didn't set up government to be a career for you to get rich, to enrich your cronies, and to thwart the will of the people that sent you to Washington. That's not what this is about. And so I think that message is going to win the day. And we're going to continue to execute every day, run a great campaign, and expose the truth. My opponents said I'm dark and I'm negative and I'm mean. And, sometimes the truth hurts. And these two guys are very, very weak men, both of them that are running, because they're controlled by Mitch. When you're controlled, you're a weak man. And they're very, very weak. And we're going to expose that. And I think the people of Kentucky, it's going to be very obvious to them.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy when you're trying to save a country. When I was getting ready for this interview, Nate, of course I went through and you say you want to end illegal immigration. I thought, okay, yeah, a lot of people say that. But then I saw you say amnesty is treason. And I thought, all right, now we're talking. Now we're on to something, Nate.
Absolutely. You're right. Amnesty is treason. And that's why I've called for a full moratorium on any new immigration coming into our country until we send back the 20 million illegals that Joe Biden let invade our country. We have been in a crisis for generations around our border. And Mitch McConnell talks this big game that he's done all these miraculous things. Mitch could have fixed the border a long time ago. He had so much power at one time. He could have fixed the border. He didn't do that. He instead chose to enrich himself and enrich those around him. And the reason why we haven't fixed the border is we've got these career politicians that have kicked the can on this issue generation after generation. And, someone's got to pay the piper. Someone's dealing with this. We're dealing with this. And, when you've got illegals in your country, you're driving down American wages and you're driving up housing prices. You are taking from the American worker when you let these illegals in our country. And that's why we're full. Every one of them's got to go back. They got to go back where they came from. And we have got to get our country under control. And it starts by having a strong border. And one of the things I share a lot is that it's not just the border that's on the line. This is Western civilization. I mean, I don't have to tell you about what's happened to the United Kingdom. I mean, my friend J.D. Vance famously said that they're going to be an Islamic state with a nuclear weapon in a decade. And the people in the UK have lost their country because of open borders. And America is the last bastion of Western thought and Western civilization. And we cannot lose that by having a porous, open border and not sending all these illegals home.
This is so true. So true, Nate. I guess one thing that you're going to be asked and people are going to look at, your opponents are going to look at, certainly, thankfully you don't have a record in public service. The opposite of Mitch McConnell, you have an entrepreneurial record and a business you built. Tell us a little bit about that and how the lessons you take from that and how that translates into the issues you care about.
Absolutely. Number one, I'm proud that I'm not a career politician. And secondly, I'm proud that I'm not a lawyer. Mitch McConnell and my two opponents are both lawyers. And you all know this. We got plenty of lawyers. We're full up there in Washington. We don't need any more. And I'm proud that I made a living in the waste business. And I'm sure you watched The Sopranos. You know that the waste business is the dirtiest, toughest, nasty business. And I was a disruptor in that industry. I started my business with about $10,000 on a credit card, grew it into one of the largest waste companies in the United States, and took it public on the New York Stock Exchange. And what a lot of people don't know about the waste business is that when you're in the waste business, you're fighting against Bill Gates. You're fighting to get some of the biggest money in the world. Bill Gates is the biggest garbage man in the world. He owns more garbage stocks than anyone. And so this has not been an easy task to break into this industry, to scale this industry. And I want to take those lessons of entrepreneurship and starting from nothing, starting from scratch, and that perspective, because I dealt with the American worker every day. I mean, the folks in the garbage business, they don't get celebrated like they should. They do jobs that nobody else wants to do. And I think that's what's so great about President Trump and the MAGA movement is that we're giving a platform to the people that do the jobs in our country that have got to get done and haven't been talked about and haven't been celebrated. And I'm excited to bring that perspective to the United States Senate.
There's a plenty of garbage to take out in Washington, D.C. That is for sure. Nate, if people want to learn more, where do they need to go?
Yeah, please go to my website, natemorris.com. And I need your help. I am taking on the McConnell machine nationally. Please become part of this campaign. Donate to this campaign. Visit me on X at Nate Morris. We want to engage you. We want you to be part of this movement because we are going to take out the trash and rid Kentucky and the United States of the stench of Mitch.
That is perfect. Nate, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Best of luck.
Thank you all.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll continue on the illegal immigration. We'll have Julio Rosas, who is down in South America, right after this. Well, let's talk about the cover-up on Blaze TV. If you haven't watched it yet, you're missing something big. It's a docu-series that lays out how the government and public health agencies lied to you during COVID. It goes all the way through the origins of the virus to the lockdowns and the vaccine narrative and how big tech actually went through and helped them cover it all up. But it wasn't about public health. It was about information warfare. If you missed the first 4 episodes of this acclaimed series, you can binge them right now, and you'll want to because episode 5 just dropped. It's called Muckraker, and it breaks down the pandemic industrial complex, and it shows how Fauci and Birx and all the government bureaucrats actually work together with social media platforms to silence the truth. It's not just censorship, it's all about mind control. So you can go watch the 5 episodes now at FauciCoverup.com/mandate and get $20 off your subscription. That's FauciCoverup.com/mandate. Blaze national correspondent Julio Rosas spent the last week traveling across South America alongside Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and she met with presidents, ministers, and top dignitaries. And we always love catching up with Julio, so let's go ahead and do that right now because Julio, I want to just play a game of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? That is you. These last few months, you've been all over. So let's get into this trip. What was this trip all about? Why did Kristi Noem want to travel to South America?
The main reason was to sign deals in Argentina, Chile, and Ecuador. And the reason why that's important is because the Trump administration, they're taking advantage of having a secure border. So it's more than just obviously having the infrastructure, having the personnel and the funding to secure our border, but now they're going to go out to places where there has been illegal migration and sign deals so that there's better cooperation between the United States and each of those countries. And that's significant because South America, it's a big continent. We have countries that are friendly to us, and there are countries that are very antagonistic towards us. And so even a country like Chile, whose president is far to the left, he understands the importance of having public safety being addressed because he is going to run for, seemingly he's going to run for another term. And so they've had problems with immigrants like from Venezuela and dealing with Tren de Aragua even before the United States did. So even though, as an example, a country like that may not like Trump on a number of issues, they do want to work with the United States because, as with like an example for Chile, they are in the visa waiver program and they have to meet certain thresholds. And so they don't want to lose that very coveted status for its citizens. So in my view, it was very successful. It was obviously very cool to go to those places and see kind of how the different areas are and how they worked. And really it was to just show that this administration, like the previous one, they're actually going to one, show up, but then also two, actually work with each of these countries for our benefit, but also for their benefit as well.
Julio, let's talk about countries that we're friendly with, like Argentina first, and drill into that. I mean, going to see Milei, this is someone who is almost a celebrity on the right throughout the world, right? And this is a country rare in South America where Trump has a real ally. So was that trip about deals as well, or was that just sort of a ceremonial, meet and greet? Hey, how's it going? We're all friends here.
No, I mean they signed the most deals with Argentina. They signed 3. It's 3 agreements, and it ranged from putting Argentina back on track to be part of the visa waiver program. They got removed from it in 2002 after many Argentinians overstayed. their allotted time in the United States. And they also signed agreements to streamline the repatriations and to ensure that if we're sending a hardened criminal back to Argentina, that they're then not immediately released back into that country so that they can then maybe potentially leave and try to come back to the United States. So that was pretty significant just because of the number of deals. Chile and Ecuador was only one deal was signed. But it was probably, yeah, we spent the most time within the week, right? We spent about like a day and a half total in Argentina, whereas the other countries was about 24 hours each. And that was because of our more friendly relationship with the president there.
Well, you mentioned Chile and their president being very far left. How was it with the cooperation that they saw there and the fact that they're just going through and trying to make deals while Secretary Noem is down there?
Well, like I said, one of the main things that they signed with Chile was having a new biometrics program to basically continue to be a full integration with the country and its version of the FBI. And so it's called, the acronym is BITMAP, and it is a database for basically an international database with gang members, terrorists, suspected terrorists, things of that nature, so that our law enforcement and their law enforcement can both access it and share information through there. So that if, for example, someone is trying to leave that country to come to the United States and they get flagged in that system, they can be prevented from leaving that country and potentially be taken into custody before they even leave the airport. So that's why it's significant, because like I said, there's a lot of, it's not just Agua, but also MS-13 and kind of the other local gangs in that region as well. And so they touted 2 apprehensions during the event there about how they prevented a TDA and MS-13 gang member from being able to reach the United States.
What about Ecuador? I understand you kind of have to explain the visa waiver program in order to explain what went down right in Ecuador, and explain why it's necessary for them to accept Venezuelans.
Yeah, so that one is significant because the main thing that was agreed upon there was having a liaison from Ecuador to be into the Customs and Border Protection's information center here in the States. So again, just better streamlining of data and information between the two countries. But the main thing that I found interesting was that during the course of Secretary Noem's conversations with the president, she asked them if they'd be willing to accept Venezuelans into if the administration can't deport Venezuelans that are here illegally back to Venezuela because a number of reasons, then they can say, well, here's the third country that we can send them back to so that they can basically be there instead of back in their country of origin. And that's significant because, again, South America is not a stranger to having Venezuelans outside of Venezuela. I mean, a lot of the Venezuelans that have come to the United States within the past few years, a lot of them came from other countries in Latin America. Same thing with Haitians as well. So if we're able to create these agreements with these other countries that already have experience to send non-hardened criminal Venezuelans back to South America, I mean, that's a win for the Trump administration domestically, because they can then get around kind of the lawfare that's happening and say, well, you can't send them back to Venezuela, it's too dangerous. And say, okay, well, since they don't have a legal right to be here, they can at least go to a country that's a little bit more familiar than staying here in the United States and abusing the asylum process.
Can I just ask, what do we do in return in that case? So for Ecuador, are we just telling them, hey, you need to accept Venezuelans? I mean, is there a quid pro quo here?
Secretary Noem did not get into that. It's still very early in the stages because right now it's just like a verbal, hey, would you be willing to do this? Yes, we're open to it. But she said that they're still working on it, and that's significant because the more agreements that are made in that region, it puts pressure on places like Colombia and Brazil, who are definitely headed by governments that do not like us. And Secretary Noem even said that the Colombian president Petro, he has not been very cooperative on cracking down on the cocaine trafficking business, which is very, very significant in that country. And with Ecuador, a lot of the cocaine that comes from Colombia to get to the United States, it goes through Ecuador. So we are going to be sharing information on how to secure their northern border with Colombia so that they can, intercept either it's the people or the drugs before it even reaches the United States. So I think to answer your question, Matt, I think it's going to be one of the ways to reciprocate that is kind of the trade secrets on how to secure the border, because obviously our border right now is very secure.
Well, I do like all this that you're saying, right? We all want them to go down back to South America. If that's going to be an option, we are all for it. Now, you did say that Kristi Noem is still trying to work out some of these deals. So if we do have the deportation partnerships that are going to be out there, how quickly do we actually think that some of these could start getting implemented?
Well, it depends on a number of factors, right? It depends on how soon these deals can actually be ironed out. It depends how quickly ICE can be staffed up when it comes to their new recruitment goal, because right now they're trying to get to 10,000 new agents. DHS has, while we were on the tour, literally right in the middle of it, the DHS launched its new campaign for recruitment, and apparently it's been very successful. They already have 1,000 job offers to people who have recently applied to just ICE. So I guess that's pretty significant. So I understand people are kind of impatient on when mass deportations can truly start, but I mean, I would say that it's an everyday thing, right? I mean, the Trump administration understands that this issue was one of the top issues, if not the top issue, for the reason why he was able to make such a big comeback. And so, unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight. And as we've seen, not just with the lawfare, but we also have to work again with these foreign governments that the Biden-Harris administration was more than happy to ignore. So we kind of have to also just redo these relationships and to put the countries on notice that, like, hey, you were able to take advantage of the United States for the past 4 years. That's not going to fly anymore. You're going to deal with somebody who, yes, you will make a deal with us, and we're going to be on top of you to make sure that you hold up your end of the deal. And I think those countries know that, at least the ones that are more friendly towards us. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're certainly, I can tell you, we're certainly headed in a much better direction than we were even 2 years ago.
Julio, I mean, I think it's so important that we sent you out there, and this trip was so important because this is our hemisphere. And I think a big part of the reorientation of foreign policy, when you look at the big picture, ought to be to stop looking at the Middle East, to stop looking overseas, and to start to pay attention to what's going on with our actual neighbors, with all the issues revolving around that actually impact all Americans. And so very important work that went on there. But you were also, there on this wild trip, this crazy tour for a few days. So I'm sure there's got to be some interesting things that happened that you didn't report, in your stories. Any interesting highlights that you can reveal to us from behind the scenes from being on the trip?
Well, I mean, I would say that it was a good time in the sense of, again, just being able to see how everything kind of works behind the scenes. Even when it comes to things that are kind of semi public, right? When it comes to like these types of events, I would say that with Ecuador, we were at the presidential palace waiting to leave because we had a scheduled time and we're part of the motorcade. So it's like, okay, we have to be back in the van. It was at like 1:05. And we were ready to leave. Well, apparently the conversation that Secretary Noem was having with the president and his ministers went so well, we didn't leave until an hour and a half post that original departure time. So that was it just kind of shows that when we arrive, when the United States arrives to these countries, especially when it comes to an administration that actually wants to have American strength and American sovereignty, people want to take advantage of when we do make the effort to fly all the way down to South America. I mean, it is a little bit long. I mean, from DC to Argentina is about 12, 13 hours. From Ecuador, it's about 5. So, I mean, Secretary Noem is leading a department that's under a lot of scrutiny, has a lot of attention towards it. So they want to take advantage of the time, the face-to-face time that they're able to have, because obviously she's not going to be able to go down to that continent every other week or something like that. So I thought that was interesting. And also just the fact that, again, even with Chile, even though, yes, the government in general doesn't like a lot of things that Trump does, they understand the importance of working with us on this just because, again, they know that the Trump administration is serious. They know that we're not going to lose sight of the importance of this topic. And so I would just say that people we're very good. We're very good and actually attentive to what Secretary Noem was saying, what the message was coming from from President Trump.
Well, Julio, in the time that we have left, I want to ask you about a question. This is all over the news right now, right? There's a Democrat congresswoman. She was down in Mexico City, and she was saying that she is a proud Guatemalan before she's even an American. I have to get your thoughts on this crazy story that we keep seeing all over the place.
I mean, it is very frustrating. It is very frustrating to see someone say that, because this is not just some random person, right? This is a member of the United States Congress in a foreign country talking about how they're so proud to be from another country, first and foremost, and then, yeah, maybe as an afterthought, I'm also American as well. I mean, I hate to pull like the race card or the heritage card, but like as a Latino, it's beyond idiotic. It's beyond idiotic, because here you have, a very winning the lottery of being born in the United States, and you're going to grow up and you're going to actively work to undermine it from an institution from within, and you're going to brag about it in another country at an event that was very antagonistic and very demeaning towards the United States. I'm far from the only person to have said this, but this is an example of somebody who needs to be denaturalized and deported immediately. If you love Guatemala that much, then yeah, vaya con Dios, go with God, and don't come back.
Mic drop there. Julio Rosas, thanks so much for your time. We're glad you made it back to North America, back to the United States. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll get your replies to what we were just talking about with Julio. There's a whole controversy going on. That's up next. Some lawmakers fail to represent their constituents. Illinois Representative Delia Ramirez put the interest of a whole other country first. Here she is saying that she's proud to be a Guatemalan before she's proud to be an American.
Quiero terminar diciendo unas palabras en español porque yo soy guatemalteca con mucho orgullo, primero que soy americana.
So I posted on X, should this be grounds for removal from Congress? Let's get straight to your replies. Kyle said, yes, you cannot serve two sets of constituents, especially when the first is not the one who put you in office. It gives perfect credibility as well to ending birthright citizenship immediately. John Eastman would be so proud right now, Matt.
Yeah, he would be. I mean, it's his day in the sun for those who don't know him. I mean, he's a scholar who worked with Trump at one point, was persecuted for it, but also said for years that birthright citizenship doesn't make any sense. Just because you're born here doesn't mean you're a citizen. Most countries don't have that. And he argues very persuasively that in the record, constitutionally, that's not what the 14th Amendment ever meant. That movement has gained traction. I think most people think it's common sense. And I think change in that regard is on the way. Help is on the way.
Bruce responded that first Congress, then the U.S. She violated her naturalization oath, and her constitutional oath of office. So many things there, so many violations, so little time.
Yeah, I mean, we really have to start taking seriously all these mentions, right? When you take an oath to the Constitution or you go into office, there's all parts of the law that say, you can't betray the interests of your country. You have to be a citizen means that you are above all an American when it comes to your relationship to any other country. This is the most basic common sense, right? You can't have a country if you think that this is okay. And thankfully, I think most Americans do not think it's okay. And this kind of garbage is on its way out. And these kinds of people are going to increasingly face consequences for this sort of treasonous attitude.
Well, Craig rounds out the replies. He says, sure, wouldn't this be confirmation that, as Steve Deace says, the social compact is broken? How else should we respond? And there are so many different aspects to this, but just looking at the overall social compact of the country is like, you have to care about America first, especially if you're trying to represent Americans.
I mean, yes, you said it, Jill. At the very heart of the American founding and what America is the idea that we are politically equal. We come together as citizens, and ultimately the voice of the people is what matters. What the people decide is what matters. That's at the heart of American government. It always has been. That's the early American Republic. That's the Declaration of Independence itself. That's what it's saying, right? No taxation without representation. That's why we were mad about the UK. The tax didn't even have to be a lot. The point was the principle that the people have to be able to represent themselves. Otherwise, you don't have Republican government. So if you live in a country where some people don't seem to agree with that, they think that because they're experts and they have fancy degrees, like Anthony Fauci, he should rule you without your consent. If you live in a country where people think that they don't have to have an allegiance to America, they can walk in, they can become a citizenship with benefits, and it's just like a little card, a little club, but ultimately they belong to something more important, their country of origin. They can't be citizens either. But right now we live in a nation with people who have radically different understandings of what a nation is, of what citizenship is, and a whole host of other things. So in that sense, yes, the social compact is broken in America. And the only way to solve that problem is for people of like mind who understand, right, what this country is about, who understand what it means to be a citizen, to reassert themselves and that truth and push for that to be enforced by law and be reflected in the laws. That's the big battle that you see playing out today. That's why the border and the immigration stuff is so important. That's what the Trump administration is trying to accomplish. But as you know, Jill, we have a long way to go when so many people, maybe even 40% of America, doesn't agree with these basic principles, or they've been brainwashed into thinking that citizenship isn't real and that behavior like this, from this lawmaker, I hesitate to even call her that, is A-OK, and they should somehow defend her and not their own country. So a long way to go. It's not over, but we can still have a social compact among those people who understand and agree on these principles and these sorts of laws and policies that the Trump administration is pushing.
Yeah, and I look at a day like this, a show that we had today, right? The fact that she would go out there and say something like this during the Biden administration, she would have been applauded. She would, oh, this is so great. You're so brave for going out there and standing up. The fact that we would go through and we would see people, trans men, trying to go through and compete against women in sports. Okay, well, we've called out all of those wrongdoings, and we have, actual laws in place now in many states across the country. And Donald Trump having a group of young girls there at the White House that are standing up for the rights of young women to just go out in this country and compete against women. So I want to just remind people, the small wins are going to turn into big wins. And with the last remaining few seconds we have, just another note from Mark Elias that we have. I am outraged that the price of standing up to Trump, standing up for democracy, is being subject to endless lies, attacks, and false accusations by the people who know better. That's what we used to have to deal with, guys. We don't have to deal with that anymore, Matt, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and he does have to deal with it. And he should have to deal with a lot more besides in the future, and so should they all. And I think it's coming.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.